Let's take a look at method for making up numbers. I have a problem that I've used many times with students here in front of me at many different grade levels because it is, well, challenging no matter what grade level you're at. In fact, I've used it a lot with mathematics teachers, finding them challenged as well. I called it problem of the day because sometimes in my class or when I'm working with teachers, I like to do one problem per day, one problem that is different level. Sometimes it might take a while, sometimes it might be quickly. But what I mean by problem is it's not obvious how to get started, and it's certainly not obvious what the answer is. So it should have there's a point where someone feels confused in the problem. If it's very straightforward, like if I were to write, 54 plus 13, I don't think that's a problem at all. That's an exercise. People know what I want them to do, and they can either do it successfully or not. So a good problem is one where it's just not clear what I'm asking. Let's take a look at this one. It's called A Farmer, a Daughter, and Some Apples. A young man asked a farmer for his daughter's hand in marriage. The farmer says, "If you wish to marry my daughter, you must complete this task. I want you to walk out to my orchard and pick some apples. On your way back to the farmhouse, you will pass 3 fence posts. At the first one, leave half the apples you have and half an apple more. At the second fence post, do the same. Leave half the apples you have remaining and half an apple more. Do the same at the third fence post. You cannot cut, bite, fold, spindle, or mutilate any of the apples. But when you are all done, you must have 1 apple remaining for my daughter. If you can do that, you may marry my daughter." How many apples does that young man need to pick from the orchard to accomplish this task? Now, like I said in the previous problem, you're going to need to get in the habit of first reading, and then you're going to have to reread, and then you're probably going to have to reread again and again and again, many times on a problem until you kind of understand it. So what I'm hearing in this problem is that the task is he's got to go out, got to get some apples. I don't know how many. I think that's the question, and then come back and leave some apples at 3 different fence posts. All right. There's this thing about half an apple more, which is weird. And there's also this thing like you can't cut an apple. And I'm already like, how can you leave half an apple more and not cut an apple? That has me troubled. But remember that the strategy I want to explore with you is making up numbers. And so one way you can get started on this is if the question is how many apples, I'm just going to make up a number that I think might work, or at least give me a clue and see if it works or not. And so I don't know. I'm just going to use the number 100. I like to use the number 100. I'm going to say he picks 100 apples. All right, I'm just going to, and he's like, well, where did you get that number? I just made it up. All right, I just made it up. What if you made up 1,000? Well, you could make it up. What if you made up, 50, whatever. So let's think about what happens in the story. So there's this orchard, and don't be overwhelmed by the beauty of all my drawings. Okay, there's these apples. I'm sure those look just like apple trees in the story, and then the young man has to go back and he has to leave some apples on these 3 fence posts. So I'm kind of drawing a picture in here to get an idea about it. Now I'm going to use red for my apples. Okay, so he leaves some apples here. All right, I don't know how many. And then he goes to the next fence post and so on. So notice that what he does every time though is it says at the first one, he leaves half the apples you have and half an apple more. And in fact, if you read this and reread this, you'll see that's the same at every fence post, half the apples plus half an apple more. So if I think about that, the way I find half of 100 is I would divide it by 2 and I would get 50, right? That's half the apples. But then if I add half of an apple, that's 50 and a half apples. Now that should already be a problem because remember, I can't cut, I can't mutilate, I can't do half an apple. So I'm like, wow, this is impossible. I can't do it. And it's because I've made up a number. But you might notice that if you choose a different number, in fact, if you just change it by 1, it can really change the outcome of the problem. What if he picks 99 apples? Watch what happens. If you do 99 apples divided by 2, 99 divided by 2 is 49 and a half, or 49.5. If you add half an apple more, it's 50 apples. That should give you some insight. Now, as a math instructor, I might have insight a little more than that. I might think, How did I get whole apples instead of half apples? Oh, it's because I had an odd number. So odd numbers seem to be better. Now notice in the problem that it says, leave half the apples and half an apple more. So 50 apples would be left on that fence post. So you might think like, oh, he leaves 50 there, but then he has to go to, so I did it successfully, right? So then I go to the next fence post and I have to do the same thing. I have to leave half of them and half an apple more. So then I just follow through with the numbers like, well, how many, if he left 50, how many does he have now? Well, he started with 99. Remember, I already had discounted my 100. So he started with 99. And so if he put 50, now he's carrying to the next fence post 49 apples. I think I want to use my black pen when I use, so he's carrying 49 apples over the fence post. So what happens there? Well, 49 divided by 2, what would that be? It would be 24 and a half, but plus half an apple more. Once again, it works out nicely. He's going to leave 25 apples on this second fence post, and that's going to work out 25 there. Now, how many is he carrying to the third fence post? Well, he had 49, he left 25, and that leaves him with just 24 apples he's carrying to the third fence post. And now he leaves them there. How many does he leave? The problem says he leaves half of 24, right? Half of 24 is 12, plus half an apple more. He has to leave 12 and a half. Now, I got it wrong because you notice I can't leave half apples. So this is a problem. But I gained valuable information along the way. Okay. First of all, I need something to be odd, like 3 times in a row. And the other thing I've noticed is at the very end of the problem, and let me scroll back up there for a moment to remember that we have to sometimes revisit the problem. He says, when you're all done, you must have 1 apple remaining for my daughter. Okay. So that probably means I need to start with less apples because notice I still had like around 12 apples left. So the number 99 is quite a bit too big, but it gave me some good insight. And then from there, if I were just picking numbers, I would then go through the same process, but I would just think about a different number each time. I might think like, well, 99 was too large. What if I chose something smaller than 99? What could it be? Could be a lot of things you might notice. And notice that an odd number was also nice. Maybe you try 27 and see what happens. And you kind of walk through this process again and see if 27 doesn't work out. And you might find it does or does not. You also will notice how many apples are left at the end. Should it be more or less? And you can keep playing with this until you actually find the answer. I'm not going to finish it for you. I'm going to leave that as fun for you. I hope you see how to just pick numbers and make them work for you.